in 314 for a shooting at Century Theaters. They're saying somebody's shooting in the auditorium.
Roger, keep your fires west of the smoke. You're cleared hot. An officer hit. Send me the world.
Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again.
Welcome to Tactical Tangents.
Welcome back to Tactical Tangents. This is Mike. This episode is brought to you by Devos Outdoor, your go-to source for lightweight, portable, and versatile lighting solutions built for the outdoors and beyond. Whether you need scene lighting for public safety emergencies or reliable area lighting for your campsite, Devos has you covered. Their LED lanterns offer variable outputs and color options with Bluetooth remote controls that provide a complete ecosystem of lighting in a compact and easy-to-deploy package. These lights are perfect for camping, hunting, search and rescue, crime scene processing, and nighttime operations. Devos optimizes your experience and alleviates your pain points with extra power banks, solar panels, and more. Devos Outdoor ensures that you have long-lasting portable lighting no matter where you are. Check out their lineup at Devos, D-E-V-O-S, outdoor.com or find them on Amazon. Again, that's Devos, D-E-V-O-S, outdoor.com. This episode was also brought to you by Loa Boots. Start your day off on the right foot with footwear that was designed for those who stand relentlessly in the face of adversity. I wear Loa every single day, for miles on canine searches and for hours on tactical operations in inclement weather. No matter what, Loa keeps me moving. Whether you run, hike, hunt, or fight, on the streets or out in the woods, Loa has the gear you need to help you conquer whatever challenges you face. Go check out their new line of trail running shoes at Loa Boots, L-O-W-A boots.com, and get outside for some fresh air and daylight. Loa, for those who know where they're going and won't stop until they get there. So, Jim, we did an in-person interview not too long ago where you interviewed me, and I feel like it's only fitting since you're here and in town that I interview you.
Ah, my turn.
Yeah, and I feel like we've talked a lot about your career in different ways, and similar for me, right? Like it's not like we've never discussed elements of our career, but we've never actually got into, if you're like a high school kid or someone in your early 20s who's feeling maybe lost and like is thinking about what to do with their life and they're considering a career in the military, like we probably should start at square one in that realm, right?
Yeah, like I dance around my career for lots of reasons. Obviously, there are security considerations and not wanting to embarrass the unit that I work for, and trying to keep my professional life and my side hustles separate, right? So I go out of my way to kind of mask what I do.
Same, on some level, not the same, but
yeah. But on the other hand, the whole reason we do this is to mentor and to share our lessons and share our sometimes hard-earned, embarrassing lessons with the next generation. So hopefully we can do that tonight.
Yeah, so just to kick us off, the military, I feel like, and it's interesting because I spent about 5 minutes in the Air Force, and that was enough to get kind of indoctrinated into the theme, but not enough to live it, really, right? Like, but you and I were besties around that time, and I remember distinctly having to communicate, like it was like instant messenger and email, like old school, like straight up emails. And there might have been a snail mail letter or two around like the basic training era, but it's so different now. Cause like one of the things that stands out to me as it relates to this podcast, at least, is there were times in our friendship, I guess in the last 10 years where we talked a lot more when you were deployed. Like we spent more time FaceTiming when you were like in Iraq or Afghanistan than we did when you were at home.
It's funny how that works out. And kind of a recurring theme, you're going to hear me say this in different ways at different times throughout this episode, is like your experience will vary, right? My deployed experiences are very different from some of my Army buddies. And often when I am deployed, I'm on an air base, usually, and my life when I'm deployed is actually very simple. It's like being a monk. You have a simple life. You wake up, you do your JOB, you eat, you work out, you go to bed, and you don't have a lot of the distractions that come with real world while you're deployed. And so you can kind of explore the space and the time you have between the deployment tasking stuff and working out and eating, it's yours. So a lot of times I'll call back to family, and technology is crazy. You can FaceTime now.
Yeah.
That's compare that to the lived experience of people in Desert Storm or Vietnam or World War II or the Civil War. Like it has changed the war experience for a lot of dudes.
I remember even early on for you and I, there were times where we would still communicate on like Messenger or something, or AIM. Like,
hell yeah.
And though we could communicate, it was still like the internet was not great, right? It was sporadic still.
Oh yeah, and if you had it overseas, like frequently they would shut it off. Yeah. Sometimes for good reasons, sometimes the internet just sucked. Right.
So your frame of reference, you've been in the military since you were 17 years old, if I remember correctly.
Correct. My dad had to sign a form so that I could go off to join the Air Force by way of the Air Force Academy.
Yeah.
And so according to the United Nations, I was a child soldier because I was 17.
Which is kind of cool at face value by itself. And I remember those days a little bit. The Air Force Academy is a college. It's a college that you go to that is essentially an extension of your officership into a military academy, right? And there's different service academies that you can get into, but essentially you go to college, and to pay for your college, it's free for you, but it comes with a service agreement, correct?
Yeah. So there are lots of ways to end up with a commission in the military, but the three kind of basic ways that most end up doing is either a service academy or Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC, or some sort of officer accession school, officer training school, officer candidate school. And each one has a little different structure in terms of its relationship to college. So at the academies, the military training and the college are embedded into each other. ROTC, you go to a normal college, a real college, if you will, and ROTC, your military training is one of the classes that you do, and also a lot of your summer programs revolve around that. And then OTS assumes you've gone to college, you have your degree, and then you top it off with officer training. So each one's a little different, and there are good reasons to go with any of those, and there are good reasons not to go with any of those, depending on what you're trying to do.
So an officer candidate program, ROTC, or a service academy is a route to become an officer in the military. You can also just straight up enlist. Can you talk about the differences between enlisted and officer? And specifically, is it just that like, oh, well, the officers outrank the enlisted? Like what should steer my decision in that choice?
Yeah, on some level, it does come just down to that, right? And there's historical stuff going back to knights and serfs and stuff from the Middle Ages, how we got to officers and enlisted ranks. And it also varies service to service. Like we have some very educated enlisted cats across the services, and especially in the Air Force and Space Force. I have enlisted guys I work with who definitely have their bachelor's degrees. Some of them have masters and beyond. So it used to be an education thing. Either like you had your bachelor's, so you did officer stuff, or you didn't, so you did enlisted stuff.
Like essentially you're smarter than me, so.
Or at least more educated, right? Like, and the theory behind that was it was kind of a class thing back in the day, and now it's more a getting tracked to middle and senior management, and the types of skills and the types of management skills you need to do well in senior management versus doing the actual task, learning a skill. I would compare a lot of the Air Force enlisted jobs, and this is not a perfect thing, right? Like every job's different, but most of the enlisted jobs are skilled trades, right? You start out, you're an apprentice, then you're a journeyman, and then you're a technician, and then you're the master of your trade. And the ranks kind of follow that, right? Airman, sergeant, technical sergeant, master sergeant, they're actually modeled after that. One area where the Air Force is kind of flip-flopped from the other services is traditionally in like the Army or the Marines, it's your younger enlisted guys who are out doing the fighting, right? In the Air Force, traditionally, it was your officers who were flying the planes out doing the fighting, and they had enlisted guys sometimes in the back. But it is flip-flopped from the other services in that a lot of our fighting traditionally is done by the O's.
Why is that? That's it. That I've never heard it put that way, but it makes sense in terms of the flying stuff. I think it's interesting that it's flip-flop in that sense.
Yeah, and it's debatable. And this is one of those areas where, like, it's a delicate subject, right? Because as soon as we start talking about the class ranks, we're talking about class differences. It's easy to mischaracterize that as, you know, we need smarter in one or the other. That's not what it's about. We have very, very smart enlisted members. And we have some very dumb officers. But the thinking back in the day was that there was a certain level of education that you needed to have to do pilot stuff. And if you think about like what navigation was like in World War II and Korea, and even up through like the 80s and the 90s, the amount of like calculus and trig you needed to have to do that well was college level or better in a lot of cases.
I mean, I'm not a pilot, but even now, it's still not simple.
Yeah. So
right?
My first airplane had a celestial navigation port where literally you would stick a sextant, or the navigator would stick a sextant out of the roof to spot stars to help us navigate and not fly out of gas into the ocean. Right?
A what?
Yeah. So the navigation has simplified over the years with GPS until it gets denied to us, and with a lot of the tech that we have until it gets denied to us. But that's where I think a lot of that came from. It also comes from the responsibility that we put on pilots, especially in the Air Force. And think back to like Strategic Air Command. A B-52 pilot might carry a load full of nuclear weapons, not a nuclear weapon, but a load of them. And that is a hell of a lot of responsibility to put on anyone, any human. And we wanted that person to have some sort of depth of philosophy and political science and the arts and the humanities so that they understood what the hell it was they were doing.
That's a good point. I think a couple things come to mind on that. Like, there are, I don't know, in the movies or whatever, instances where a guy on the ground calls for air support and has to put like his commander's initials, right? The radio guy puts the commander's initials.
Yeah.
And it is essentially signing off on a danger close fire mission or something like that, right? Just as an example.
Yeah. You can delegate authority, but you can't delegate responsibility.
Yeah. And so to that end, it makes sense. The amount of responsibility about like even a bomb, right? Like you could drop a bomb and that can be significant. But I think it's interesting. One of the things that comes to mind when you talk about officers in enlisted, it's kind of like, we call police officers, but it's obviously a different thing. But
they're officers in that they are officials of the government, right? That's where the term officer comes from. You have an office of the government.
Right. And also you speak to the responsibility piece and the authority piece, right? All that comes with it too. But I think about a lot of the cases where an officer, a police officer, and how much impact they can have. Those are the ones that at the end of the day, like end up having a potentially strategic impact, right? Like I could see that in the officer versus enlisted disparity there that you're describing.
It is, but I always have to be careful with a whole bunch of caveats not to overgeneralize, right?
Yeah.
So we have enlisted people who absolutely can fly a plane, and they could probably fly a plane better than I can. That's not that hard to fly better than I can, right? We have enlisted dudes who can deliver a lot of violence with the weapon systems they're trusted with, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of responsibility there. But I'm talking generally and historically, you've got that. And also as far as military command, a big part of military command is your legal authority, right? You are entrusted, not terribly unlike a cop, with the legal authority to, among other things, impose UCMJ penalties on your folks.
Like to compel people to do shit.
Yeah, you can give an order, and you can send somebody to the brig, right? You can take a stripe, you can take pay, and that is real legal authority, and with it comes a real legal responsibility. And typically we want those people to have some education to understand what it is they're wielding.
Yeah. So what should steer my choice? Let's say, hypothetically, out of high school, I went to, I don't know, USC or the University of Arizona or whatever, and I got a degree, and I have a degree.
Yeah.
And now I'm considering like my life is kind of like, I don't really know what I'm doing. Maybe I'll go fight bad guys. Like maybe I'll go do the military thing. Should I go military, like officer or enlisted? Assuming that my motivation is not pay or just stable employment or benefits or retirement, assuming that it's about fulfillment from what I actually do, what should steer my choice?
Yeah. The advice I give anyone career-wise always comes down to picture like 3 circles in a Venn diagram. One circle is, what do you want to do? What do you like doing? And that should drive a lot of military decisions, because there are some military jobs that I would not want to do, right? And what are you good enough to do? And what does society value enough to pay you for, right? Those 3 circles. And you got to find something that in some way, some part of your life has to address all 3 of those. And ideally, you find a job that addresses all of them together, right? So what do you want to do? What type of job you want to do in the military should drive a lot of whether you go O or E. There are jobs I couldn't do because I was an officer. Like pararescue is traditionally an enlisted-only career field. They now have combat rescue officers, but they don't get to do a lot of ninja stuff.
Right.
They do a lot of the senior management and staffing and budgeting and command stuff. A survival instructor, survival, evasion, resistance, escape, similarly, that's an enlisted job. So if you really, really want to teach SEER, like enlist, piloting typically is an officer job. In the Army, they have a lot of warrant officers, which is like a strata of ranks between the enlisted and officer ranks. They are officers. They get saluted. They get called sir and ma'am, but they don't fall into the officer pyramid, the rank structure that is officers. And they typically get to do a lot more of the technical skill and more or less of the staff weenie stuff. It's not always true, but it's largely true.
So I don't want to get bogged down on too much of this, but we're talking about the difference between officer and enlisted. What about the services themselves? You've commented a lot of times in episodes of ours about like, oh, I'm just a, cream puff Air Force guy.
That's
like,
right.
Or the chair force guy. Like, is the Air Force the softer service? And I specifically want to address, like, I understand from an air crew and safety perspective that when it comes to flying an airplane, there are fatigue restrictions and things like that. Like, you need rest and all of that. Totally get it.
Yeah, and those sound cheesy, but those rules are written in blood, right? We've
100%.
crashed enough planes that, like, we actually have some really, really good science on that.
Yeah, but also as a ground guy by my own trade, I can speak to the fact that like fatigue also affects decisions on the ground
For sure.
and those are impactful as well. And so I understand, again, from my own perspective, culturally why the Air Force might come across as the softer of the services.
So
but like, can you speak to outside of just flying an air crew?
Yeah.
But bigger picture. Is that really true, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there are a lot of ways to approach this. One is that there's this weird cultural myth that my life sucks worse than yours, therefore I'm better than you.
Yeah.
And
I think that's significant.
that's kind of stupid.
It is. It's a funny mind trick that people play, like, on each other.
Yeah, and you tell yourself what you need to tell yourself to get through Ranger training or get through Marine Corps
make you
recruit
feel
depot,
better.
right? Yeah. And I will say I've been in the military now for 22 plus years, and I can count the number of times I've slept in the mud on like 1 or 2 hands. I don't think any of my Army brothers and sisters could say that, or Marine Corps brothers and sisters, right? So yeah, when I go, I sleep in a bed. And I like it that way. If you want to do field work, and there are lots of really good reasons to want to do field work, like there are great jobs to go do that. And you can do some of those in the Air Force. Again, survival instructor, you get to spend a lot of time out of the woods. It's awesome. It's a really, really cool career field. Security forces gets to spend a lot more time out of the field. Not always the field you want to be in. Like a lot of the fields that we need security forces in are like guarding missile silos in Minot, North Dakota. And we need it, right? Like there are very good reasons we need to secure those things. And you can have fun doing it. But like a lot of jobs, like you can choose to have fun or you can choose to not have fun.
I think that's a good point. Like when I think about camping,
We can take anything and make it suck.
I've done camping. Like when I was younger, I've done the survival stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like I've made the shelter out of parachute
Yeah.
sections or sticks and leaves and like all that. And it's cool to have the confidence and like the mental, like just the resilience component of like, yeah, in a pinch,
Yeah.
I could do it. Right.
And
but now at 40, I'm like, I'm also cool with like hanging out outside, outdoors, and then sleeping in a bed.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things about a military career is like there are people who do the military for 2 or 4 years, and there's a lot of discomfort that you can enjoy for 2 to 4 years. But when you get into years 12, 15, 20, that gets a little old. Also, this comes down to fundamental how we fight. The Air Force delivers violence from air bases. Right? That is our role in the joint fight is we set up a base, we launch aircraft from that base. So we are on a base. It's usually a pretty big base. It usually has quite a few services. It needs electricity to run. It needs air conditioning to run. It needs communications to run. So you're gonna be on a bigger, better guarded, better appointed facility on an air base than you would at a fire base out in the hinterlands of a combat zone, right?
Yeah. There's a couple things in that. Like one is you mentioned like they need electricity, air conditioning, plumbing, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so there's something to be said about if you want to get in the military and do one of those jobs, that's a place you could still learn and do those jobs. And not necessarily like everyone might have to pick up a rifle someday, right? But like,
but probably not, frankly.
Right. But like, you can get into one of those jobs and get paid to learn how to do it, and
Absolutely.
and have a background in doing it.
There are so many skilled trades that I honestly don't think you could match in the civilian world. Getting that much experience that fast
and getting paid well with benefits and retirement and
while you're doing it,
right.
So. And that's a great case for the enlisted ranks, right?
Yeah.
On the officer side, you will learn some sort of skill. Often they don't translate super directly to the civilian world. Like if I'm a navigator in the military, and we need those, right? There aren't a whole lot of civilian navigators.
Right. Can you speak to the trades and this might be different for officer and enlisted, so speak to it if so.
Yeah.
But let's say like I want to go the military route in the moment.
Hell yeah, come on in.
But as time goes on, like that could change, right? Like I get 5 or 6 years in, I decide I don't want to do this anymore.
A lot of people do exactly that.
Right. And certainly one route is I can just like do my term and leave.
Yeah.
But also, can you speak to like cross training? Can I jump ship? Can I change jobs? Like how can I get into special teams? What does that look like for your typical officer or enlisted person?
Yeah. Everyone's experience is going to vary. Standard caveat on everything I'm about to say. One of the big ones that we have is the ability to go from active duty to guard or reserve, the total force. And those are awesome for the people who like them. And I can't speak well to those opportunities, but I know there are tons of them out there. And if you don't want to move around as much, or you want to explore life outside of the military a little bit and have the flexibility to do some military stuff and then like not military stuff, Guard and Reserve are some really, really good options. So that's thing one. Some careers are more cool with cross training, and there's some special opportunities within a career. I'm trying to think of a really good example. I have switched airplanes, I think 4 times now. So I've always been a pilot. I do pilot stuff, but I've switched from different types of aircraft and different types of units over my time, right?
Are they different aircraft or different versions of the same?
A little bit of everything.
Can you speak to that? What do you fly, Jim?
I fly ugly airplanes.
So this is a funny thing. So for anyone listening to the podcast, like if you're ever wondering why this is an audio only format, not video,
that's part of the deal that I have with my employer, right? Is that I don't identify my unit, I don't identify my airplane, and I don't really identify myself if I can help it, right? I speak just for me, and I try real hard not to speak for my community. But I can tell you, I've flown rescue airplanes, I've flown mobility airplanes, I've flown close air support airplanes,
and no one knows what a lot of that means.
That's okay.
So you can people who dive into that if you want.
What do the kids these days say? They say, if you know, you know. Something like that. But I love doing it. And the coolest part is honestly, it's the people I get to work with is absolutely the coolest part of flying. And then the people I get to work for, my supported units, getting to protect or deliver special forces guys or Rangers or SEALs or whoever. I love getting to work with those dudes. And that is some of the most fun I've had in the military, is getting to work just in the company of heroes, right?
And yeah, when it comes to that piece of it, I get it, right? Like the company of heroes, like I work with some incredible people. I've seen them do some incredible things, and that by itself is pretty fulfilling. So, speaking of being a pilot, and we could talk about like getting into being a pilot if that's what you want to do. Like that's its own probably episode, right?
Flying airplanes is cool. You pull the stick back, that has to get smaller. You push the stick forward, that has to get bigger. Like,
yeah,
it's not cosmic, honestly.
Right. But I feel like there is some stigma about like you're either like a fighter guy, you're either like Maverick Top Gun, or you're not. I should say you're either like Maverick Top Gun or you're like an airline pilot. Can you speak to that and sort of what that looks like?
Yeah. So what I'll tell you is the military, just like any organization, from the outside looking in, looks like one big group, right? Outgroup homogeneity is your SAT word of the day. Outgroup homogeneity. That's why they sent me to officer school to learn words like that, right? So on the inside, you start to see all these little microcosms, all these little sub-communities, right? So there's a fighter community. And then within the fighter community, there's the Viper guys, and there's the Eagle drivers, and then there's the Raptor guys, right? And there's always someone cooler than you. No matter how elite you think you are, no matter how badass you think you are, there's always some green door that's next, right? And it's structured that way a little bit.
Probably anywhere, right? Like any job, any career field, that's probably at least on some level true.
Yeah. So one of the things I didn't understand about the Air Force before I got in and before I got into the pilot world was how good the Air Force is at pairing pilots to planes. And there's a type of pilot that flies fighters well. There's a personality that does well in that.
Archetype, if you will.
Yeah, I'll run with archetype. We can use that term. I would just say like there's just certain traits, right, that make a fighter pilot a fighter pilot. Very competitive, very spatially aware. Like when I first commissioned, I was waiting for pilot training. I got to do a bunch of rides in F-15s, and it was awesome. And I'm glad I had that experience. But one of the things I saw when they were doing big, complex air combat maneuvering stuff was how on earth do they know where all these other airplanes are, and how are they not swapping paint? And like I have profound respect for the fighter bros because of that, right? And you have to be able to work in a team in that you're in a 2-ship or 4-ship or whatever the formation is, but at the end of the day, it's you in that cockpit. Right. Yeah. There's no one else to lean on. If you screw up, no one's going to catch it and save you.
And there's a lot to respect and appreciate about that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So the A-10, the F-22, the F-35, the F-16, the F-15C, those are all single seat airplanes. And at the end of the day, it's on you. And so there's a certain personality that does that well. Yeah. Right.
No, I think in law enforcement, that's one of the things, like you have your own car and you get to make your own decisions. That's something that I can relate to pretty well, especially coming from an EMS background.
Yeah.
But I've also experienced very much that there are personalities that work better alone than collectively, right? Like as a group.
And you could compare it a little bit. One of the best analogies I've seen is comparing the flying community to the medical community, right? So there's a personality that is a surgeon and a personality that is a generalist physician or family practice or gyno or whatever. And similarly, like those specialties, you see specialties among pilots, right? I like working on a crew-served airplane. I like having a crew. I like having a lot of brains and a lot of eyes helping me solve a problem and keeping me in check. That's part of the fun, right?
Well, but it's also, there's a complexity component, right? Because you add other people and it gets more like...
There's a lot more to manage, right? Yeah. I have to manage people, 100%. Whereas a single seat fighter has to manage a formation. And there's also a pacing to it, right? In a fighter, you're always on fire. You're always low on gas. And
literally on fire.
And the plane ain't going to slow down, right? Like it's going to go a couple 100 miles an hour no matter what you do.
At best, yeah.
And if you slow it down, bad things, if you slow 2 down, bad things happen, right? On the bigger, dumber, slower planes, it's not about the speed of the plane. It's about the speed at which things are happening, how you're getting through checklists, how you're doing the big complex things that you can do on a big complex aircraft. So, yeah, there are a lot of little sub-communities, and you're going to find your place. And the Air Force is actually really, really good at finding you your spot, in my experience. And if you hate it, like, yeah, you can find a different plane, you can cross-train. There are opportunities to trade AFSCs, like your specialty code. It doesn't happen super often, but like one of my best friends started as a communications officer and he switched over to Intel and he loved it, right? So you do see stuff like that, right? And you can try out for some special ops jobs. You can try out for combat control. You can try out for OSI if you like the law enforcement stuff. So there are special opportunities, and there are also like weird career opportunities. On the officer side, there are like fellowships you can do. There are special professional education opportunities. You can go work, be a fellow in Congress or White House. There are a lot of opportunities out there if you're the type of personality who looks for them and is ready to seize them. Not everyone is. Some guys just want to fly their jet, and that's cool. But the Air Force needs that, but it also needs well-rounded, thoughtful commanders and leaders.
That brings me to my next point actually really well, which is, can you speak to the up or out philosophy of the military? Because in law enforcement, I can come into this career, and if I'm happy being a patrol cop and I just want to be a patrol cop my whole career, that's fine. Like I don't have to promote, right? Yeah. And people go to special teams, or sometimes the moves are maybe a little bit up or down, but like more lateral, right? But it's not up or out, and that doesn't seem to be as much of the case in the military. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So again, your mileage will vary. It depends on whether we're talking officer enlisted, and our ranks, the number of people who can be in those ranks is set by Congress, right? Go back to the Constitution. Congress has the power to raise an army and maintain a navy. Doesn't even mention an Air Force. Travesty.
Weird.
But
something about history and years and
yeah. Well, one day the Space Force will invent a time machine and we'll get it added. It'll be fine. So it is literally shaped like a pyramid in that we only have so many 4-star generals. We only have so many 3-star generals. We only have so many colonels. We only have so many whatever.
Why can't I just be like I don't know, first lieutenant forever?
It's literally not structured that way. You can, like I said, the Army has the warrant officer ranks, which is, I think, a brilliant compromise in terms of letting guys be technical experts on the officer side. Air Force just doesn't do that. Yeah. We've toyed with it, we've talked about it, but it's never really taken shape. I can say, in my career, we've faced 3 sets of reductions in force, layoffs, right? And so at some point, if you are not one of the top tier people, they can weed you out, and they occasionally do. If you get passed over for promotion too many times, there is a process to consider whether to keep you or not. And as it happens, I have explored the space on that. My career has taken a bunch of weird ups and downs and stuff, and we will probably get into that at some point, probably tonight. But it looked for a long time like I was going to retire as a major. which is pretty unusual. Typically, if you get passed over for lieutenant colonel, you get like 1 or 2 more looks, and then they consider whether they want to keep you, and a lot of guys end up separating, right? When that happened to me, and it's a huge sob story. Obviously, none of it was my fault. Obviously, I got screwed over or whatever. I say that obviously facetiously. Everything ultimately comes down to you as far as your career. But the Air Force considered keeping me and said, hey, you can stay for 24 years. So they did not up or out me.
How did they did not up or out you, but they put a limit?
Yeah, they said your
How's
height.
that number come up? Like,
it's written in an Air Force instruction, and it says after second look, you'll automatically be given separation paperwork unless the review board decides to give you continuation, and then they can set how long your continuation is. And so they graciously, in my opinion, said, yeah, you can extend to 20, and in fact, we'll keep you to 24 because we really need pilots. And so I'm like, hell yeah, I'll do it. And because I love this job, right? Like, this is all I ever wanted to do. I was 4 years old. I watched Top Gun too many times, Iron Eagle, whatever. And I love it. I would do it for free. If I'm not going to tell the Air Force that, but like I would, right?
well, I mean, yeah, you have to pay bills and support a family, obviously, but like,
But I had opportunities along the way to go fly for the airlines, for example. And like nothing about that fits me well.
yeah.
So I did not get up or outed, and as it happens, I stuck around, and they promoted me, mostly as a joke at this point, but they did, so that was cool.
You mentioned the ups and downs of the career thing, and that wasn't originally on my list of things to talk about. But what does that look like? I mean, and specifically, if it's up or out, this is difficult because, like, you don't want to play politics if you're just mission oriented and you want to just do the job, right? Do the thing, right? But like, at some point, I guess there is a political component to it if you have to market yourself and sell yourself. And you, like I said, you mentioned specifically the ups and downs of your career. If your job depends on it, like, where does that factor in?
Yeah. So whether we like it or not, whether I agree with it or not, the Air Force doesn't just need pilots to be pilots. It doesn't just need intel officers to be intel officers and just analysts, right? At some point, we need you to start working your way toward running the operation, right? And there are certain boxes they expect you to check along the way.
Do we need everyone to do that, or just some people?
We is a funny phrase. The military, as I understand it, expects everyone to be trying to work toward that, right? And like I said, there are ways you can just be a specialist and just stay in your little box. But generally speaking, they're going to want to broaden you. Generally speaking, they want to see you hungry. And the way they see that is by documenting your accomplishments. And that's hard because we want you to be a quiet professional. We want you to be humble. But when it's time to write down your paperwork,
okay, yeah,
learn from my mistakes.
Yeah.
Write down what you did.
So
right?
This is funny because I've heard this from a lot of people in the military, not just you. In fact, probably not as much from you as I have from other people, but
that's because I don't care.
Right.
I just do this stuff because it's funny.
Well, and that could be telling, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, here's the thing: so a lot of people I know in the military have to like write up their own awards, write up their own promotions, like their what do they call it? Like OPRs, EPRs, like officer
your performance
or
reviews,
officer enlisted performance reviews.
Yeah,
like,
and it's changed names over the years. It's
Yeah.
OPB, EPB now. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
the
and
point
like-
is you have to do performance reviews, just like you have to do in the real world, right?
Kinda. I mean, like in my job, that's one of those things that like I just have always refused to do. Like I'm not looking for credit. Like I'm not going to write a thing to be like, hey, look at me, like brag about some arrest I made or whatever. And some people do that. Some people will write up things that like make sure they get visibility. And I don't know. I'm not about that. But there is a big difference when in a military context, like your career depends on not only getting more pay, like if you want to make more money, you have to.
Which is nice.
And also, if you want to get promoted and not get laid off, you also have to.
Yeah.
So like, there's an element like you have to politic for yourself.
Yeah, and
that's hard.
And politic means...
I shouldn't say it's hard. Before you answer that, like, I shouldn't say it's hard because some people are all about bragging about themselves. And I don't enjoy those people most of the time, if I'm being honest. Like, they kind of drive me nuts. But a lot of people, like, don't. They're just humble about it. And the system is not set up to reward humility in those points.
So a couple of things. Politicking is a funny word, right? There's the catty, backstabby, sucking up to the boss stuff, right?
Sure.
And I'm not about that, and most people I work with aren't about that, and that's one of the things I like about where I work. On the other hand, you have to be willing to do some of the jobs that nobody else really loves doing to get promoted, right? We want to see you be an exec for a commander. The exec is the administrative assistant for the commander, handles all the paperwork for him or her. And the point of that is you're getting a lot of face time with one boss, and you're learning about all the responsibilities of that boss. And
makes sense.
And so we want you to have that experience if you're going to lead. Yeah. We want you to be a flight commander. We want you to be responsible for some people. We want you to write some OPRs, EPRs, EPBs, whatever. We want you to knock out your professional training, your education stuff. Do the captain's school, the squadron officer school, do the major school, Air Command and Staff College, do the colonel's school, Air War College, right? And what you're telling the military when you do that is that you're interested in the higher ranks, that you're interested in leading at the next rank. And if you don't do that, you're also communicating. And that was the thing that I didn't really understand, was by not doing that stuff as well as I needed to, I was communicating something to the bosses.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So one career thing I want to jump in on is, especially on the officer side, and I kind of cognitively, conceptually understood this, but I didn't really grasp it, is that if you actually really want to get to the high ranks, you want to make colonel, you want to make general, the race to get there starts day one of your commissioning source. And it absolutely starts day one of being commissioned. And if you're screwing off in those first couple of years, that's the time you need to build inertia to get escape velocity in your career. And you get identified surprisingly early as a high potential officer or not. And once they identify you as like, hey, this person's trucking, they're going to start opening up opportunities for you to excel, and opportunities for you to fail, and opportunities for you to do some of the cooler assignments that are kind of invitation only. So if you're serious about this stuff, and if promoting is important to you, and it should be at least a little bit important to you, understand that you're in a race from day one. And that doesn't mean be a competitive jerk to everyone, but do volunteer for opportunities, take chances to lead, take risks, do things, put a professional polish on the work that you're doing, and don't just, clock in and clock out.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I see, like, there's those people in law enforcement that come in, like, I'm teaching at the academy, or I see him in FTO or early on, and I'm like, that dude's going places. And you do invest in those people, right? Yeah. And like, it does make sense to, like, on one hand, invest in yourself, but also in the same sense, like, step up, because it will pay off.
Yeah, like one of the worst pieces of advice I've seen people give someone about to join the military is like, don't be first, don't be last, don't volunteer for anything.
Yeah, be the gray man, the guy in the middle.
I understand where that comes from.
Yeah, for sure.
But that is not good advice if you actually want to be part of the leadership of the organization, right? When I think of the people who revolutionized the military, not a single one of them would have fallen into that category.
Yeah.
Right?
What cool things about being in the military, not necessarily as a pilot, but bigger picture, were not on the brochure?
So there's a double-edged sword that a lot of decisions are made for you, right? Like they're going to kind of automatically set up your health insurance and your dental insurance. And they're actually, especially when you're one of the younger cats, they're just going to make your appointments for you. Like, oh, you have a dental on the 30th of August or whatever it is.
Sir, yes, sir.
Yeah, and you just go. And there's a simplicity to that. There's a simplicity to the military life that is actually pretty awesome. That's a double-edged sword because you don't ever actually learn how to adult. Yeah. And I know some people who were in the military and very successfully in the military for 20 plus years, and then they get out.
I've seen that. Yeah.
And then they kind of don't know what to do with their hands.
Yeah. No one's telling them what to do all the time. Yeah.
So you get a little institutionalized, right? Shawshank Redemption-y. So that's a good and a bad, but it's a net good, I think. So that's one thing. There are legit benefits, and especially since 9/11, the frequency and sincerity of gratitude from the American people to us in uniform is intense, and it's palpable. And there's a warm fuzzy that comes with that it's hard to describe, but we appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm always a little socially awkward about it, right? Because I want to be a humble, quiet professional. But there was one time I was at a Jack in the Box in San Luis Obispo, California, and I had ordered, and some lady walked up to me and was like, I really, really want to buy your lunch, and handed me a $5 bill. And I'm like, I kind of didn't know what to do with it, but all I could do was say thank you and we appreciate your support, right? Yeah. So I think that's a big one. Another one, I grew up in Southern California, and I had some preconceived notions that like maybe we're not as good of good guys as we think we are. Maybe the bad guys aren't as bad as we keep making them out to be. And then I went to Afghanistan and Iraq a lot. And what I will tell you is every time I deploy, and I've deployed quite a few times at this point, I am genuinely impressed at the skill, professionalism, and care that the American forces and the coalition forces take to get it right. And I'm always impressed at how fucking bad the bad guys are. There is no question in my mind, like the moral clarity that I have at this point in my career for like what ISIS is and what Al-Qaeda was and what the Taliban is. I sleep very well at night, given what I have done at work, right? And I like that I have, generally speaking, been a part of the solution. They didn't always go as smoothly as we wanted, and Afghanistan didn't end as smoothly as we wanted, but I can be proud of the work that we did. And I can say we removed a lot of really, really bad guys off the planet. They're always going to make more, though, and we got to be ready for that.
Yeah. And what about like the bad or annoying or frustrating things? Like there's got to be, it's easy, and I've experienced this too, right? Like as a cop, there's a lot of people in the world have like strong feelings about cops, and all cops are bastards and whatever. Like I've seen this time and time again, like fuck the police. I get it. Right. Yeah. But like, does the good always, like there's a negativity bias for sure. Yeah. Right. There's those burnt out moments.
Oh yeah.
That you're like, all right, fuck this.
Yeah.
So like what are the frustrating or annoying or negative things?
Yeah. Most of my problems ultimately are first world problems, right? Like literally one of my big dramas is I have a bunch of networks when I log in the morning.
I feel you.
Yeah, so I'm drinking my coffee, but it takes like 45 minutes for all of my networks to log in, right? That drives me nuts. You're not allowed to walk on the grass. Is that the end of the world? No, but I also don't understand why grass is sacred. I don't understand why gravel is sacred. Like it's
the most military thing I've ever heard.
One of my favorite things, like you're gonna be having a good day, and then out of nowhere, the military is gonna do some dumb shit. Like that's gonna happen every single day. I didn't appreciate when I was young how much impact moving all the time was going to have. And
just what that looks, yeah.
And like, I get paid.
I hate moving.
Yeah.
I hate moving. Yeah. And I haven't had to do it other than by choice.
Yeah. So imagine like you're a spouse of a pilot. So the types of people pilots tend to marry tend to have careers themselves. They tend to have degrees. They tend to have licensing. They're doctors, nurses, lawyers, whatever, right? And it is really hard for those professionals to move. So every time the military comes up with some idea of where they want to move you to, it is serious drama to move your family, right? You got to take your kids out of school, get them into a new school. Oh, we're going to send you to England. Well, that's really, really neat. Except, like, how do you get your kids into school in England? Like, we've been doing it for a while. We can figure that out. But, like, that's a legit stressor. And then every time you move, and, you know, the movers will break your stuff. That will always happen. Everything costs money. Like buying a house and selling a house, you're going to get fleeced on both sides of that equation, right? And so there's like a moving tax that you end up paying. And, you know, like I said, I get paid pretty well. I get paid well enough. I honestly can't complain, but I still will. That's a military tradition. And I don't know how much money I've lost over the years just dealing with the moves and getting houses set up and getting utilities set up and all that stuff every single time. And then there's like, every time I turn around, I've got a new friend network. And sometimes that's good. Like I meet new friends, but that's one of the reasons I'm big on social media is like, that's how I stay connected to my support network is through Facebook and stuff, right?
Yeah. But what if you're just like a single guy or gal and you're just like figuring life out and you're just like, hey, I'm just going to go do the thing. Like I'm looking for a job, a career. I'm looking for belonging, a sense of community, like whatever it is, purpose, fulfillment.
If you want those things, the military is absolutely a great place for you.
Okay, like, fair. 100%. But what's not on the brochure that you need to factor into that choice?
The first thing comes to mind is your time is not yours. The military can waste your time better than anything in the whole world. It is amazing how much time you're going to spend sitting and waiting for the armory to open or for loading onto the plane if you're an airborne troop or waiting for the plane to get there or whatever. Like there's so much just sitting. The phrase hurry up and wait is absolutely accurate unless you're in SOF. If you're in Special Operations Forces, it's wait, hurry up, holy shit, go. It's the opposite. You're going to go. The question is just when, right? So that I think is the first thing that strikes me. Is like your time is not yours and just how true that is, right? There are some days, depending on your job, your day may be very structured. You get up at 5:30, you PT, you shower, you're back in the office at 8 or 8:30. You're going to do structured block training. You're going to go through stations working on specific soldier skills or airman skills. And then you're done at 4:30 and then it's chow and then you're resetting for the next day, right? And there are some Air Force jobs that are a lot more like comfortable, cushy office jobs, finance, communications, intel in a lot of cases where you go and you work in a cubicle and you're working more or less like
9 to 5 kind of thing.
9 to 5 or 8 to 3 or something like that, right? As a pilot, you're bouncing all around the circadian rhythm. You fly when the plane is ready for you to fly, right? So you might fly, you have a 4 a.m. show for a 7 a.m. takeoff, and then you're going to be flying for the next 6 hours. Or if you're a fighter guy, you're going to fly, land, refuel, rearm, fly, land, refuel, rearm. You'll do like a 2-turn 2, that kind of thing. And you fly when the jet's ready. And then you'll switch and you'll do a night training week. And so you're waking up at 3 p.m. to brief at 6 p.m. to take off at 9 p.m. when the sun's down. And that varies with when the sun goes down. So like sun goes down later in the summer and earlier in the winter. Like that's stuff that will affect your circadian rhythm. And that's fine when you're young and you can kind of bounce back. But imagine you're bouncing back and forth. And also you have a 3-year-old who won't stay in bed. Right. And
or a 6-year-old who's in school.
Yeah. And your wife is a nurse and she's got a night shift. Well, then who's watching your kid?
Yeah.
And the military's gonna be like, well, so what's your child care plan? Like they're not going to solve that for you.
They actually ask that, or is that just
100%? They will ask that, especially if you tell them you can't come in because you can't watch your kid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Makes sense. Knowing what you know now, going back to the very beginning of your career.
Yeah.
I know you well enough to not ask, like, would you do it again? because like I don't think there's any question there.
No.
But what would you do different? Like what things about your military career would you, if you had to like bullet point like a top 3, because I know there's probably several, right? Top 3 things that you would do differently now, knowing what you know about your career 22 or so years into it.
So I made a lot of choices in my career that at the time made a lot of sense, right? Because of the sort of relationship I was in early on, or the certain relationship I'm in now, where I was trying to make compromises between my family situation and my work situation. Those did not always work out super well for my career. That was usually the thing I was compromising on, was career advancement, right? If I were more serious about promoting, I would have volunteered to be an exec. I would have asked to be a flight commander, and I didn't do those things. And that set me on a track pretty early. I was told by lots and lots of guys when I was real young, like, get your master's degree knocked out. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get around to it. And they're like, no. You will never have more time than you have right now as lieutenant. Do it now. Like, I didn't understand how much it really was a race. You got to get the boxes checked early, and that sets what strata you're sitting in when they're ranking guys. And kind of going back to the career talk, like, the Air Force has a lot of captains. Like a lot of captains, right? And
this is part of the up and out thing.
Well, hang on. Yeah, y'all kind of look the same to the Air Force, right? You're all bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, great Americans. You're all qualified in your weapons system. You're all qualified in your career. So how do we differentiate Captain number 1 from Captain number 1500? And that's tough, right? So, and the Air Force will 100%, we call it rack and stack. So there's like an Excel spreadsheet, and the wing commander on that base knows exactly who the number 1 captain is, and who the number 3 captain is, and who the number 300 captain is. And at some point, when it comes time to promote or send guys to school, they're going to draw a cut line. And you don't have to be the number 1 all the time, but you need to not be the denominator in the fraction all the time, right? So I think I would have tried harder not to be the denominator quite so many times.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, is that different as an officer versus enlisted? Or is that same apply?
So the enlisted ranks absolutely get real narrow as you get above master sergeant, right?
At the top,
as you go from master sergeant to senior to chief, absolutely that gets real competitive really fast.
Yeah.
I think one of the things, at least on the Air Force side, what we don't explain to people is the amount of studying we expect you to do. There is absolutely an academic cognitive side to what we need from our Air Force members, both on the enlisted and on the officer side, right? It's a very technical service. We need you to know stuff about jet engines. If you're going to work on a jet engine, you need to really understand a jet engine.
Even on the enlisted tech side, right?
Absolutely.
Like the trade side of it, right?
Yeah, if you're going to be a maintainer on the F-22, you need to know stuff about radars that normal humans don't know about radars, right?
And that they don't teach it like, ITT
tech
right.
or whatever, right?
I was thinking of,
yeah. And some of those skills, like welding is welding, right? But the Air Force is, if we need you to weld, we'll send you to go get every type of welding training, right?
Yeah, that part's easy.
Yeah. Which is not to say welding's easy, but the Air Force will 100% get you trained on it, right?
Yeah. Resourcing the training.
Yeah, and just the amount of studying we expect you to do. We expect our enlisted cats to know a lot about the military, and they're going to take tests on it. That's one of the things officers don't do. We're not taking tests on officership, at least not outside of professional education programs.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that covers a lot of like officer versus enlisted, Air Force versus others, pilots versus others. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that you think is important for someone? And again, I come at this from the perspective of like, if I'm considering a career in the military, especially, I mean, there's diehard kids out there in junior high and high school, I know, because you and I were both them, right? That like know what they're going to do. And then there's the people who they're working towards something very specific, like being a pilot, right? Yeah. But specifically towards people who are maybe considering in the sense of maybe why not kind of thing. Like, is there anything else you have for them to consider?
Yeah. If you're not sure what you want to do, I mean, the military will find something for you to do, and they will teach you along the way, and you're going to end up with some kind of a marketable skill, and you're going to end up with the basics that I think everyone everywhere wants from a new employee. You're going to show up in the right place in the right time, displaying the right attitude, wearing the right uniform. Like, we will teach you that 100%. And you don't have to want to be an F-22 pilot to be in the Air Force. In fact, one of the big things I think a lot of people don't know about the military is there's a lot of civilian jobs in the military. You can be a Department of the Air Force civilian, get paid GG-13 or GS-13, which is about what a major makes. And that is a specialist. There isn't really an up or out on the civilian side. You don't have to wear the uniform. Most people probably aren't going to shoot at you. And we desperately need really good, smart civilians. And you don't have to be paramilitary to get those jobs. So that's one. The Guard and Reserve thing, if you're not really sure you want to do the military thing, like, you might look into that. I always knew I wanted to do the military thing, and I always loved it. That doesn't mean every single day is a bed of roses, right? Like, I have days where I get out of work and I'm like, F this job, right? Or F this boss or whatever. But in total, I love doing it. It's a lot more fun than a real job.
My last question, I want to phrase this right, but one of the things when I see, there are people who come through the police academy and they wanted to be cops. For whatever reason, they're like, yeah, I'm going to go be a police officer. And it can be hard in this day and age to differentiate, like, hey, they were looking for like a government job. They wanted good benefits, retirement, right? Like, they were just looking for some stability, decent pay, blue collar, no degree required. But like, they weren't necessarily fit for the side of it that, like, sometimes violence is the only answer, right? And in the short stint that I did with the Air Force, right? Like my little enlisted career that I had for about 5 minutes, that was like a theme, right? Like basic training, like they indoctrinate you into the idea that like, hey, our job is to break things and kill people. At the end of the day, our job is break things and kill people. Now, the day-to-day of a lot of military enlisted people, especially, and I don't know, maybe officers as well, is not break things and kill people.
No.
So like, what do you think about that philosophy in terms of like, if you're just looking for something to do, right? Like a job, stability, marketable skills, is that appropriate? Or do you think that is misguided to say that, hey, we're not here to hire mechanics or firemen. Like, we're here to do other things.
So I've gone back and forth on this a lot over the decades, and I'm big on the warrior ethos. Like, I think everyone in the military should be prepared for violence, like direct, absolute. Like, if it's me and some bad guy in a room, like, you're going to have to win. You're going to have to figure out how to win. That said, very, very, very few people in any of the branches of service, including in the combat arms parts of the branches of service.
Even the badass, like in a lot of cases.
Peacetime, very few of them are actually jumping through windows and shooting people in the face, right? The vast majority of the Air Force, you're going to be working in a cubicle. You're going to be working in a hospital. You're going to be working in an industrial site fixing jet engines, right? And those are all important to our ability to project combat power. Again, we project violence from military bases, right? But that doesn't mean you're the guy hitting the button, dropping the bomb, and that doesn't mean that some North Korean's going to come over the wire at you and slit your throat. That said, at some piece of you, I need to have ready for that.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good distinction, especially because, like you said, you're hopefully enabling or empowering those things to happen, whether you're doing them or not, right?
Yeah, and some of it is
you're participating,
and some of it is honestly your attitude toward your job, right? Like, and we've done episodes about supported and supporting forces and customers and bosses. Like, I need that guy fixing or that gal fixing that jet engine to understand that jet engine is going to be the
thing.
It's going to be the thing that enables me to win that fight. The finance troop who is moving money around and approving my DTS travel arrangements, like that TDY, that business trip that I'm going on isn't for funsies. It's to develop a combat skill or to ultimately deliver that combat skill overseas. And if it gets hung up, my trip gets delayed, my ability to deliver violence gets delayed. Like, I've literally had that happen.
Yeah. Oh, I've heard stories like that.
Yeah,
for sure. So, all right. Well, I think hopefully anyone considering officer versus enlisted, Air Force versus something else.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things is hearing this. And I think military careers, in the sense that what it used to be, right? Like if you're thinking about like draft dodgers, it's not the same thing, right? It's not in 2025, maybe what it used to be. You still need to wrap your head around going to war, but there's also an element of it where it also is a marketplace for trade skills and management skills and all those things. So anything else we're missing?
You mentioned 2025. As we record this, we're in August of 2025, September. And there is a general vibe that there is growing tension with the People's Republic of China, specifically the Chinese Communist Party, right? And anyone who tells you they know how that's going to go is lying. Maybe they're lying on purpose. Maybe they're lying because they don't know any better. And I have quite a bit of education and training on this topic, and I don't know how it's going to go. But there's a non-zero chance we're going to end up in a big fight, like a big one. And we've got every day between now and that day to get ready.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about risk throughout all of our episodes and like what's the probability, what's the severity. I don't know the probability. 1 chance in 50 that we're going to have a big fight, 1 chance in 500. But the severity, if we have a big fight, is so off charts high that even if it's 1 in 500, like, holy cow, we need to get ready.
Yeah.
We need all the people we can get. We need to do the talent management, as in like recruit good, smart people. We need to keep those good, smart people. We need to get the smartest people into the highest ranks. So get your paperwork right. If you think you're better than others, cool, write it down, right? Because I need you in charge if that fight ever comes.
On a level that like we haven't seen in our lifetimes.
No.
Right?
Yep.
Like, and that's the thing is like our grandparents experienced that, but like we have not. And so it's hard for us to wrap our heads around at the scale that we have to.
Yeah.
So,
and hopefully that day doesn't come and you can join the military, learn some cool skills, learn yourself, learn how to wear a uniform and salute smartly. And there is a sense of belonging, camaraderie, and brotherhood and sisterhood that comes with that is really, really hard to match anywhere else.
sure.
And they give you free socks. So buy in now. If you guys have any questions for me or about military stuff, either I will respond to them in a future episode or I will lie about it and I will find someone in a later episode who can answer them for you. For sure. So as you listen to this, if any question popped into your head, shoot us a message and we'll see if we can get it answered for you.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of people from all the services, all over the rank spectrum, all career fields. So,
And it turns out I know a guy.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys, that's all we got for tonight. This episode is brought to you by 09 Holsters. We talk a lot about people, ideas, and hardware on this show, so when we invest in equipment, we always think in terms of experience first. 09 is helping you figure out how to carry the gear you need to be effective. They are built by cops, for cops, with a minimalist design and bomb-proof durability. Radio cases, flashlights, body cameras, even canine remotes, you name it, 09 has been filling a void in tactical duty holsters for more than a decade. Go see what they offer at 09 Holsters, that's ZERO, the number 9, holsters.com. 09, built to win the fight.
And this is Jim. This episode is also brought to you by ManusX. We've talked a lot about the tactical fantasy on this podcast, and one of the quickest ways to break your tactical fantasies and actually improve your performance is by getting real feedback. One of the ways you can do that is with ManusX. You're not going to get better at shooting on your own. You need practice, data, and coaching. And you need to make the most of your ammo with good live and dry fire training. Manus is a family of training devices that tracks you while you train. It times and tracks everything you do in a drill and coaches you as you go. It is indispensable to taking your shooting to the next level. Go find them on manusx.com.
Don't forget that we put out new episodes on the 1st and the 15th of every month. If you like what we're doing, you can head over to Patreon, give us $1 for each new episode. That money's going to go back into bringing you good content. If you want to interact with us, you could find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We are at TacTangents. You can also email info@tacticaltangents.com. All right. That's all we got. Good talk.